Two people can make the same 80,000 salary and live in the same zip code, and one ends up with a net worth of 1,200,000, while the other ends up with basically nothing to show for it. And it's not because one of them was a genius, or because one of them got lucky on some crypto moonshot. It's because at this income level, the money rules quietly change, and most people keep playing the old game without realizing it. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna walk you through two real-life style paths. First, where the money leaks without anyone noticing. Then, where the same paycheck gets turned into a machine. And finally, how the 1.2 million person protects it without living like a monk. And I want to give you a number right away, because this is where it clicks. If you invest $1,000 a month for 30 years at about 7%, you're in the neighborhood of $1.2 million. Not magic, not perfect timing, just a boring, steady flow that most people never set up. Now, let's make this feel human. Picture two coworkers. Same company, same title, same pay. $80,000 a year. We'll call them Chris and Tyler. They're both smart, both work hard, both say they want to be better with money. Chris feels behind, so Chris saves whatever's left at the end of the month. Tyler acts like saving is a bill, so it happens first. That one difference sounds small, but it's the crack in the sidewalk that turns into a canyon. Chris gets a raise and thinks, finally, I can breathe. Tyler gets a raise and thinks, cool, my future just bought more shares. Same raise, totally different outcome. And I get it, because the first time you make around 80,000, you feel like you should be rich. Then rent is up, groceries are up, insurance is up, and suddenly you're like, where'd it go? You're not broken for feeling that. But watch how this splits. Chris sets a budget that's basically vibes. Tyler sets a system that's basically automatic. And by the end, one of them is stressed with a nicer car, and the other is calm with a 7-figure net worth. All right, let's start with Chris, because Chris is doing what most people do. Chris contributes just enough to the workplace retirement plan to feel responsible, but not enough to actually move the future. Chris keeps 5 figures in cash just in case, because cash feels safe, even when inflation is quietly eating it. Then the lifestyle upgrades sneak in. A car payment that's only $500 a month. Eating out because the week was brutal. A couple subscriptions. A new phone on a payment plan. Nothing crazy, just, constant. That's how it gets you. And the biggest trap is that Chris still believes the path to wealth is found in one big move. The perfect stock. The perfect time to buy a house. The side hustle that pops. So Chris keeps waiting for the moment where it all becomes obvious. Now Tyler. Tyler also makes $80,000. Tyler doesn't love budgeting either, and Tyler isn't tracking every taco. Tyler just forces the important money to move before life can grab it. Tyler starts with the workplace plan, because that's where the easiest win lives. If there's a match, Tyler takes every dollar of it, because an employer match is basically a guaranteed return you can't get anywhere else. Then Tyler sets contributions to rise automatically each year, even if it's just 1% at a time, because future Tyler shouldn't have to renegotiate with present Tyler. Here's what that looks like in real money. Tyler puts in about 10% of salary into the retirement plan. On $80,000, that's $8,000 a year. If the employer throws in, say, 3%, that's another $2,400. Now we're at roughly $10,400 a year going into investments before Tyler even thinks about extra saving. Chris, on the other hand, does something like 3%, maybe 4% in a good year. That's around $2,400 to $3,200. Over 1 year, the gap doesn't feel life-changing. Over 10 years, it's a whole different life. Now let's talk about the cash feels safe problem, because this is where people quietly lose the game. Chris keeps, let's say, $20,000 in a savings account because it feels responsible. Tyler keeps an emergency fund too, but Tyler draws a hard line. The emergency fund is for emergencies, not for I'm nervous about the market. A clean benchmark for a lot of people is 3 to 6 months of core expenses in cash, not 3 to 6 months of your fantasy lifestyle. Core expenses, rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, minimum debt payments, basic transportation. If that number is $4,000 a month, then 3 months is $12,000. 6 months is $24,000. That's it. Everything beyond that needs a job, and the job shouldn't be sit there and feel comforting. Because here's the math that doesn't care about your feelings. If you're earning around 7% in a broad, boring index fund, money doubles roughly every 10 years. It's not a promise, that's a rule of thumb. But it explains why Tyler gets ahead so fast once the machine's running. The first doubling feels slow, the next one feels unfair. Now we zoom in on the difference maker nobody wants to hear. Savings rate beats salary once you're in the middle class. Not forever, but for a long time. Chris makes $80,000 and saves maybe 5% when things are good. Tyler makes $80,000 and saves closer to 15% across retirement, plus extra investing. And Tyler does it without feeling deprived, because Tyler doesn't let fixed costs explode. This is where the car shows up as the silent villain. $500 payment isn't $500. It's $500 plus higher insurance, plus higher registration, plus the opportunity cost of what that money could have become. $500 a month invested at 7% over 30 years is around $600,000. So when Chris says, it's just a nicer car, Tyler hears, that's a chunk of my future net worth driving around depreciating. And before you get mad at me, I'm not saying you can't have nice things. I'm saying you can't have every nice thing at the same time. The order matters. Let's make it even more real with a timeline. Chris and Tyler are both 30 years old. Both start at zero invested because that's how a lot of people feel when they're starting to take this seriously. Over the next 30 years, Chris averages investing about $300 a month because that's what's left over. Tyler averages investing about $1,000 a month because it's automated and treated like rent. At 7%, $300 a month over 30 years is roughly $370,000. Not bad, honestly, but it's not I'm free. $1,000 a month over 30 years is roughly $1.2 million. Same salary, same planet, different system. Now, I know what you're thinking. $1,000 a month is a lot. Yeah, it's also way more reachable than people think when you stop bleeding money into fixed costs. Here's where Chris gets stuck. Chris tries to fix money by being intense for 2 weeks. No fun, no eating out, tracking every dime, then burning out and swinging back the other way. Tyler fixes money by removing decisions. Tyler makes the default behavior the right behavior. This week, log into your workplace retirement plan and set your contribution to a level that actually stings a little, then turn on auto increase if it's available. If you can't stomach 10%, start at 8. If 8 feels insane, start at 6. And set the auto increase to 1% a year. The goal isn't bravery, the goal is a ratchet that only turns one direction. Now let's hit a common mistake I see with people earning around $80,000. They obsess over the investment choice and ignore the contribution size. They'll spend 3 hours researching whether Fund A beats Fund B by a fraction, while they're only investing $200 a month. That's like arguing about which gas station has the best fuel while your tank is empty. A better approach is to pick a simple, diversified setup and push the cash flow through it. Broad index funds, low fees, automatic investing. Then your real strategy becomes career growth and controlling fixed costs. Quick pause. If this breakdown is helping your money path feel clearer, hit subscribe. I make calm, honest, deep dives like this every week. Another common mistake is thinking debt has to be either pay it all off first or invest everything and ignore it. That black and white thinking keeps people frozen. The smarter move is to treat high-interest debt like an emergency and low-interest debt like a math problem. If you've got a credit card at 20%, that's not debt, that's a fire. You put it out first. If you've got a student loan at 4%, you can pay it down steadily while still investing, especially if you're getting an employer match. Because skipping a match to pay a low-rate loan faster is usually leaving free money on the table. Now let's talk about what actually creates the gap between comfortable and 7 figures. It's not one decision, it's 3 categories of decisions that repeat every month: your housing, your car, and your automatic investing. Housing is the big one. Chris stretches for a place that feels like I made it. Tyler buys or rents a place that leaves room in the budget to invest. If your housing cost jumps by $600 a month, that's not just $600. That's 600 times 12, which is $7,200 a year. Over a decade, that's $72,000 you didn't invest, plus the growth you missed. And this is where people get mad because they'll say, yeah, but I deserve a nice place. You might. But deserve doesn't show up in compound interest calculations. You're either buying comfort now or buying options later. You can do both, but you've got to pick the timing. Some years the market's going to be ugly and your income might wobble too. Here's how Tyler handles that without spiraling. Tyler has a real emergency fund, so Tyler doesn't sell investments when the market's down. Tyler also keeps investing when things feel scary, because that's usually when shares are cheaper. Chris watches the account drop, panics, pauses contributions, and waits for clarity. That pause is expensive. Let's put numbers on a typical panic move. Say you've got $100,000 invested and the market drops 20%. That's a $20,000 paper drop. If you sell, you lock in the loss. If you keep investing and the market recovers over the next couple years, you didn't just recover, you bought more shares along the way. Tyler's advantage isn't courage, it's insulation. The emergency fund blocks the panic. Automation blocks the second guessing. Now we move into the part where the same salary can grow over time. And this is where Tyler quietly pulls away. Tyler doesn't need a huge jump. Tyler needs steady increases in earning power and a rule for raises. Chris gets a raise and upgrades life immediately. Tyler splits raises. Half goes to lifestyle, half goes to investments. That means Tyler's life still gets better, but the investment engine accelerates every time income rises. This week, set a simple raise rule in your banking app. On payday, auto-transfer an extra amount to investing that equals about half of your most recent raise. If you don't get raises, do it off your next bonus, side gig month, or even a small cost of living bump. The point is you're building a habit where your future gets paid first whenever your income improves. Now, I want to show you how this ends up at $1,200,000 without needing a six-figure tech salary. Tyler invests $1,000 a month on average over 30 years. But Tyler doesn't actually start at $1,000. Tyler might start at $600, then $800, then $1,000, then $1,200 as income grows. Meanwhile, Chris might start at $200 and stay around $200 because every raise gets eaten by fixed costs. Same salary level at the beginning, different slope. And here's the sneaky part. Once Tyler has, say, $200,000 invested, a normal 7% year is about $14,000 in growth. That's more than most people save in a year. At $400,000, a normal 7% year is about $28,000. At $600,000, it's about $42,000. That's when it starts to feel like your money's doing the heavy lifting. Chris never gets to that point because the engine never gets big enough. Chris stays stuck in, I need my paycheck to do everything, while Tyler slowly shifts to, my paycheck funds the engine, and the engine grows on its own. Now, let's talk about how Tyler doesn't blow it once the account gets big. Because it's not just about reaching 1 million. It's about not doing something dumb at $900,000 that sets you back 5 years. One mistake is getting bored and gambling with the portfolio. People hit a certain balance and think, I should be doing something more sophisticated. They start chasing hot stocks, options, meme trades, and complicated strategies they don't understand. That's how you turn a boring, winning plan into a stress machine. A better approach is to keep the core boring and let your fun money be the only place you take shots, if you even want to. If you're going to scratch that itch, cap it at a tiny slice like 5% of your investments and never add to it unless the boring side is fully funded. That way, your future doesn't depend on your dopamine. Another mistake is treating investing like a piggy bank. Chris does this a lot. The account grows, then a big purchase comes up, and Chris pulls from investments because it feels like I'm using my money. Tyler keeps a separate big purchase fund for things like vacations, cars, renovations, and whatever else life brings. Because when you rate investments, you're not just spending the principal, you're stealing the future compounding. Pulling $10,000 out today isn't $10,000. Over 20 years at 7%, it's closer to $40,000. That's the real cost. Now, let's address the obvious question. What if you're not starting at zero? What if you're already sitting on $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000? Then you're ahead, and your job is even simpler. Don't interrupt the compounding. If you've got $100,000 invested and you add $1,000 a month, that's a different world than starting at zero. Over 30 years at 7%, $100,000 alone grows to around $760,000. Then your monthly contributions do the rest. That's why the middle stage is all about consistency and increasing contributions over time. And if you're thinking, okay, but I've got kids or a mortgage or student loans, yeah, that's most people. The point isn't to copy Tyler's exact numbers. The point is to copy Tyler's system. Match first, automate contributions, keep fixed costs from ballooning, and treat raises like fuel for the engine. Let's do a quick reality check with a tighter budget. Say after taxes and benefits, you're bringing home about $5,000 a month. If you invest $1,000, that's 20%. That might be too aggressive at first. Fine. Try $700. That's still meaningful. $700 a month over 30 years at 7% is around $840,000. Now add employer match and occasional bumps, and you're still in striking distance of 7 figures. That's the part that should make you feel calm. You don't need perfection. You need a direction and a default. Now, I want to zoom in on the exact fork in the road where Chris and Tyler become different people. It's the moment a big expense shows up. Chris treats big expenses like surprises: tires, medical bills, travel, holidays, random repairs. Chris swipes, juggles, and then catches up later, which never really happens. Tyler treats big expenses like a line item that always exists, because it does. Life always charges you something. So Tyler sets up sinking funds, just small monthly buckets: car maintenance, gifts, travel, home repairs. Even if it's only $50 into each. That way, the emergencies become inconveniences and investments don't get touched. This week, open one separate savings bucket or account labeled Future Problems and start it at a small automatic transfer you won't notice, like $25 a week. You're not trying to get rich with it. You're trying to stop stealing from your long-term plan every time life does what life always does. Now, I want to tie this back to the title because 1,200,000 can sound like a fantasy until you see the math. Tyler's path is basically this: invest around $1,000 a month on average, keep it invested for 30 years, and avoid the big three screw-ups: lifestyle inflation that turns into fixed costs, panic selling, and rating investments for purchases that should have been planned. That's it. That's the whole secret. It's not sexy. It's not a hot take. It's a machine. Chris's path is also simple, just in the wrong direction. Save what's left. Keep too much cash because it feels safe. Upgrade life whenever income rises. And treat investing like an optional thing you do when you're caught up. And here's what's wild. Chris might feel richer for a while. Nicer apartment, nicer car, more nights out, more convenience. Tyler might feel a little boring in comparison, but 10 years in, Tyler feels lighter. 20 years in, Tyler has options. 30 years in, Tyler's money is producing real freedom. Now let's talk about what options actually looks like, because that's what people want. It's not the number on the screen, it's what the number can do. At 1,200,000, a 4% rule of thumb withdrawal is around $48,000 a year. That's not private jet money, but it can cover a big chunk of life, especially if your house is paid down or you've got a smaller lifestyle. And if you keep working while you hit that number, it becomes I work because I want to, not I work because I'm trapped. Now, a lot of people hear that and either get excited or get overwhelmed. If you're overwhelmed, I want you to shrink it back down to the next paycheck. On your next payday, the only thing that matters is this: does money automatically move into your future before it gets eaten by the present? If yes, you're Tyler. If no, you're Chris, and you can change it. Because the 280,000 salaries to a high story is really a story about defaults. Your defaults decide your net worth more than your motivation does. And if you've been telling yourself, I'll get serious after I pay off this, or I'll start investing when things calm down, I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you that calm doesn't show up on the calendar. Systems do. So here's the clean recap in plain English. Take the match like it's free money. Automate investing like it's rent. Keep fixed costs